The man with the missing teeth and demented smile proved to be one of the most well-spoken and articulate wrestlers to have ever graced the industry. That less than stellar physique and unkempt hairstyle belongs to someone with millions of adoring fans, some of whom hail him as almost a legendary being. Highlight reels of his career show him taking inadvisable stuntman falls off of high points and through sharp, jagged objects, before, during, and even after his time as a best-selling author. His entire career can be summarized as a defiance of conventional wisdom and expectation, a supposed affront to what a wrestler is supposed to be, and yet the embodiment of the pro wrestling dream deservedly realized. I'm Jack from Cultaholic.com, and this is the captivating career of Mick Foley. Mick Foley's love of professional wrestling was apparent throughout his teenage years. In the early 80s, he and his friends made home movies that may well have been amongst the first backyard wrestling videos. In them, Foley plays a wide-eyed, hippie-centric ladies' man called Dude Love, and one particular video is notorious for Foley jumping off the roof of a house onto some mattresses. One of Foley's primary inspirations was his childhood hero, Superfly Jimmy Snuka. And in October 83, 18-year-old Foley hitchhiked to Madison Square Garden, where he witnessed Snuka famously deliver his patented Superfly splash off of a steel cage onto a prone Don Morocco. With that, a career in wrestling was what the wide-eyed youngster desired. The way Foley felt witnessing that historic moment is how he personally wanted to make wrestling fans feel. So, after training under two-time WWE World Tag Team Champion Dominic DeNucci, in a class that included fellow pupil Shane Douglas, Foley made his in-ring debut in June '86 in Clarksburg, West Virginia. Just 2 months later, Foley worked several WWE TV tapings as a scraggly-haired jobber, putting over the likes of the British Bulldogs and the Killer Bees in tag team action. In the months ahead, Foley, now under the name of Cactus Jack, gained experience working underneath matches for Bill Watts' UWF and briefly for Vern Gagne's AWA, as well as a tour of West Africa in 1987. His first consistent break came in wrestling for Memphis's Continental Territory in the latter half of '88. There, he and stud stable ally Gary Young reigned for 2 weeks as tag team champions. Cactus debuted in Dallas before the end of 1988, joining Skandor Akbar's Devastation Inc., teaming with the likes of Super Zodiac 2 in matches against Jeff Jarrett, Kerry Von Erich, and Matt Bourne. In August '89, Jack lost a loser leaves town match in Dallas to Eric Embry, paving the way for him to begin a 6-month run with WCW at the turn of the decade. Despite impressing some WCW figures with his propensity for self-sacrificial bumps, Cactus never rose past a certain level, getting beaten by the likes of Norman the Lunatic at Wrestle War 1990 and to Mil Mascaras in a somewhat infamous match at Clash of the Champions shortly before. But Cactus continued to build his legend as an unpredictable madman on the independent scene, wrestling in places like Herb Abrams' syndicated UWF, a Spring '91 tour of All Japan Pro Wrestling, the upstart Global Wrestling Federation in Dallas, and for Philadelphia's Tri-State Wrestling Alliance, the spiritual predecessor to ECW. In August '91, Cactus wrestled fellow sadist Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert in the precursor to the 3 Stages of Hell match, a Falls Count Anywhere match, a stretcher match, and a steel cage match throughout the night. The wrestling media coverage of that match enhanced Foley's superstar aura, and a week later he was back with WCW working house shows while still wrestling for Tri-State. It didn't take long for Cactus to find himself in the thick of things, tearing up the house show circuit against United States champion Sting, who was quickly enamored with Foley's selflessness as a performer. His boundless style manifested in brawls like Halloween Havoc 91's infamous Chamber of Horrors match, as well as a well-regarded Falls Count Anywhere match at the January '92 Clash of the Champions against Van Hammer. In June '92, Cactus again battled Sting, now the WCW World Champion, in a non-title Falls Count Anywhere match at Beach Blast, which for a time Foley considered to be the best match of his career. Despite playing a deranged psychopath hell-bent on ending the career of Sting, it was hard not to be charmed by Cactus Jack's exuberance, as well as his unhinged yet somehow measured promo style. There was no wrestler quite like Cactus Jack, and as '93 began, the madman from Truth or Consequences, New Mexico was turned babyface. After beating former ally Paul Orndorff in a Falls Count Anywhere match at Super Brawl 3, Cactus moved on to WCW champion Vader, and a rather infamous angle. During a match on WCW Saturday Night, Vader powerbombed Cactus onto the bare arena floor, legitimately concussing Foley and causing him to experience real numbness in his extremities. Cactus was due to return months later to seek revenge, but the potentially hot storyline was watered down in part by a hokey story in which Cactus developed amnesia and was living among the homeless in the streets of Cleveland. But never mind all that, because Cactus returned later on in the summer with Vader in his crosshairs. The two battled in one of the most brutal matches in WCW history, a blood-laden Texas death match at Halloween Havoc 93. This was actually won by Vader after manager Harley Race stuck Cactus with a cattle prod. Months later, during a match in Munich, Germany with Vader, Cactus's already cauliflowered ear had the tip torn off from a combination of extra tight ring ropes and some of Vader's strikes. Foley around this time was growing disillusioned in WCW, even as he took part in a pair of truly wild and influential tag team title matches with the Nasty Boys at Spring Stampede and Slamboree 94, teaming with Max Payne and Kevin Sullivan respectively. While reigning as tag team champion, Cactus debuted in ECW in June 94, losing a Tape Trader's Dream match to Sabu. Cactus actually drew the ire of his main employer by spitting on his belt during an ECW promo. And as the summer wore on, Cactus ingrained himself even deeper into ECW, feuding with the Public Enemy alongside Terry Funk. When Funk missed the August 27th ECW Arena show, Cactus teamed with the apprehensive Mikey Whipwreck, and the unusual duo scored an upset win over Rocco Rock and Johnny Grunge to capture the company's tag belts. After leaving WCW for good in September 94, Foley balanced ECW with various indies and international promotions. He took part in a handful of death matches for IWA Japan in January 95 with both Funk and Shoji Nakamaki. Over in ECW, he warred with the likes of Funk and the Sandman, the latter of whom he unsuccessfully challenged several times for the ECW title. In August of that year, Cactus embedded his name into wrestling folklore forever by winning the notorious IWA King of the Deathmatch tournament, defeating Terry Gordy in the quarterfinal before putting down Nakamaki and Funk in succession to win the trophy. While Foley's reputation as a living, breathing hardcore legend was virtually unchallengeable by this stage, in ECW he was ironically working to undo that image. Weeks before he and Funk attempted to immolate one another in Kawasaki, Cactus double-crossed Tommy Dreamer at the ECW arena and fell under the spell of Dreamer's nemesis, Raven. In the weeks and months ahead, Cactus openly pined for his old life in WCW while condemning hardcore wrestling in a series of memorable promos, including one where he did a complete 180 and merrily demonstrated his hardcore prowess via his deformed ear. After a terrifying fire incident weeks earlier at the ECW arena involving he and Terry Funk, Cactus and Raven battled Funk and Dreamer at the 95 November to Remember. Cactus rode out his ECW tenure in matches with Shane Douglas, Chris Jericho and Mikey Whipwreck before departing for WWE in March 96. With a little bit of hesitation, Foley divorced himself from the Cactus Jack persona to become Mankind. Mankind was a sewer-dwelling sociopath with some similar traits to Cactus, albeit now wearing an all-brown outfit, including a mask. After weeks of vignettes, Mankind debuted beating Bob Holly on Raw before attacking The Undertaker at the end of the night. And throughout the summer of 96, Mankind actually got the better of the Phenom, defeating him once at King of the Ring before beating him again in a boiler room brawl at SummerSlam after Paul Bearer double-crossed his longtime ally in the closing moments. Foley's performances as Mankind were quite impressive, whether it was a genuine match of the year candidate with Shawn Michaels, which Foley later said replaced the Sting match as his personal favourite, or the first ever Buried Alive match again opposite The Undertaker. In the spring of 97, Mankind began a sudden veer towards the babyface side of things, engaging in a compelling sit-down interview with Jim Ross where he spelled out his dreams and laments. Naturally, it ended with him assaulting JR, but that was expected. Out of that tenuous turn came the culmination of the three faces of Foley, as Dude Love arrived to help Steve Austin win a match for the vacant tag team titles, and Cactus Jack stormed MSG by defeating Triple H in a wild Falls Count Anywhere match. Foley would dip in and out of the gimmicks like a friendlier, if that's the right word, version of the Horde from the movie Split, even somehow wrestling as all three in the 98 Royal Rumble match. When Dude Love ran afoul of the New Age Outlaws, Cactus returned in order to put them in their place, flanked of course by Terry Funk, now costumed as Chainsaw Charlie. The Hardcore Legends defeated the Outlaws in a dumpster match at WrestleMania 14 to capture the tag belts, only to lose them back in a cage match the following night. A disgusted, finger-pointing Foley then appeared to retire the Cactus Jack persona before resuming life as a somewhat less innocent Dude Love. Dude Love became Vince McMahon's first weapon in the war against WWE champion Stone Cold Steve Austin. He defeated Austin by DQ at Unforgiven 98, getting a rematch for Over the Edge with Screwjob Happy Vince as the referee and Patterson and Briscoe in official ringside capacities. But with Undertaker there to prevent the corporate contingent from cheating, Dude Love and Steve Austin fought hellishly in one of the wildest and most dramatic WWE title matches in history. In the end, Austin survived, leading to an irate McMahon firing Dude Love the next night on Raw. But no worries, because Mankind made a sudden return, helping Kane defeat The Undertaker, renewing old hostilities with his longtime nemesis. This led to, of course, the most famous prolonged attempted murder in the history of wrestling, when Mankind wrestled Undertaker inside Hell in a Cell at the '98 King of the Ring. You could even argue that Foley's actual opponent was the Angel of Death, after twice falling from the looming structure, suffering multiple internal injuries and a separated shoulder, before being deposited twice onto thumbtacks. Everyone forgets those thumbtack bumps because they came after the big falls, but they were pretty nasty as well. The entire spectacle is remembered as one of the most legendary matches in history, one where the loser actually came out of it a bigger star than the victor. Given his gutsiness through the entire ordeal, it was hard to keep Foley as a heel for much longer. After a golden partnership with Kane dissolved at SummerSlam, the sympathetic Mankind was a face once more, albeit one that gravitated towards cranky Vince McMahon as a father figure. In this period, Mankind introduced the world to Mr. Socko, using the Innocent prop as an add-on for his mandible claw finish. When the WWE title was vacated, Mankind established himself as a top contender, being awarded the brand new Hardcore Championship while still showing blind loyalty to Vince's cause. What a silly idea that would turn out to be. Of course, he was screwed over in the tournament final in favor of the McMahon-backed Rock, whom would become Mankind's new rival for the months ahead. On the January 4th, 99 episode of Monday Night Raw, butts were very much firmly in seats when Mankind defeated The Rock to become WWE Champion in perhaps the most sterling example of you deserve it chance being warranted. He would exchange the belt with Rock in memorable fashion, including a terrifying I Quit match at the Royal Rumble, a frenetic empty arena match on Halftime Heat, the first ever Last Man Standing match, and finally a ladder match as well. Mankind won his final WWE Championship at SummerSlam 99 in a triple threat over Steve Austin and Triple H, before dropping it to Helmsley the next night on Raw. By this point, The Rock was now also a babyface, and he and Foley formed the quintessential mismatched wrestling duo, The Rock and Sock Connection. Together, the pair held tag team gold, while Mankind's good-naturedness rubbed Rock the wrong way, particularly in the now famous This Is Your Life segment, The Rock's ratings grabber. Foley also released the first of many books entitled Have a Nice Day, A Tale of Blood and Sweat Socks. Mick, however, was staring retirement in the face as his risk-heavy, body-battering style of over 13 years was truly taking its toll. But one more great run awaited the hardcore legend. During a rivalry with WWE Champion Triple H at the turn of the century, Mankind gave way to a Cactus Jack return. The pair spilled tons of blood in an excellent street fight at the 2000 Royal Rumble, with Cactus carving Triple H up with barbed wire before losing because of thumbtacks again. Stay away from the thumbtacks, mate, come on. The next month, barbed wire and fire made their way into the title versus career match at Hell in a Cell, where Foley's career was ended in an utter blaze of glory. But Mick got one last reward before going out, a spot in the WrestleMania 2000 WWE title match, which allowed Foley to say that he got to main event a WrestleMania at least once. Foley wouldn't remain absent from WWE for long, turning up at the start of the summer as the on-screen commissioner, a babyface authority figure that put his all into the role. He made tough decisions just as much as he demonstrated his incredible wit, particularly in hilarious segments with Edge and Christian, as the awesome duo fleshed out their gleefully obnoxious characters. However, Foley lost his job later that year via a ruthless Vince. But Foley would gain a measure of revenge at WrestleMania X7 while officiating the Vince vs. Shane match, pummeling the chairman moments after Linda McMahon kicked her husband down low. In the fall of 2001, Foley then took a sabbatical from the WWE scene. But he would turn up once again in 2003 as a last-minute guest referee for the Triple H vs. Kevin Nash title match at Bad Blood. Not long after, Foley was kicked down a stairwell by Randy Orton, which wouldn't begin to see a payoff until 6 months later. Temporarily installed as co-Raw GM that fall, Foley backed down from a fight with Orton and was subsequently treated as a coward by the Legend Killer. So Foley broke his in-ring retirement to enter into the 2004 Royal Rumble match, surprising Orton en route to a double elimination spot. Then at WrestleMania 20, Foley reunited with The Rock in a handicap match lost to Evolution, Orton, Ric Flair, and Batista. But the following month, Foley helped Orton achieve his star turn in a hardcore war at Backlash, putting over the 24-year-old upstart in grand fashion. In the coming years, Foley made many guest appearances, both for WWE and for Ring of Honor, as well as various indies where he would generally serve as guest referee or authority figure. But in WWE, Foley had himself a very busy 2006, warring with Edge at WrestleMania 22 in a fiery bloodbath, before joining the Rated R Superstar in an anti-ECW crusade. This unusual heel turn also saw the semi-active Foley slug it out with Ric Flair based on the since-buried bad blood the two had for one another back in the day. Foley joined WWE's broadcast team in 2008, a short-lived role that led to his exit from the company in the August of that year. But WWE's loss was, for a time, TNA's gain, as Foley joined the then top alternative to his long-term employer. In Limited Duty, Foley did battle with the Main Event Mafia, thereby renewing his old rivalry with Sting. Then at Lockdown in 2009, Foley actually won the TNA World Heavyweight title, holding it for 2 months before dropping it to Kurt Angle in a King of the Mountain match at Slammiversary. For the next couple of years, Foley hung around in mainly non-wrestling roles before leaving in June 2011. By the fall, he was very much back in WWE's graces, and even took part in an angle with The Rock that November in the run-up to Survivor Series. The 2012 Royal Rumble match actually marked Foley's final bout, a 6.5-minute stint that saw the 46-year-old icon make 3 eliminations. A planned feud with eventual call-up Dean Ambrose was sadly scrapped due to Foley's condition, and he chose to retire from the sport completely. In 2013, Foley was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame, nearly 30 years after he watched Snuka take to the skies to flatten Don Morocco. For better and for worse, Mick Foley has proven to be a source of endless inspiration, whether it's for his courage in skin-ripping melees or for his dedication to his craft, as well as his genuine humility out of the ring. Mick Foley may in some ways have embodied an unlikely star wrestler, but for those who look past subjective aesthetic, it's hard to argue that anybody has deserved his spoils more. Thanks very much for watching, and let us know what you think in the comments section down below. You can follow Cultaholic on Twitter at Cultaholic and on Facebook at facebook.com/Cultaholic. If you enjoy what we do, then please do check out our Patreon, patreon.com/Cultaholic, where you can pledge. And don't forget, of course, most importantly of all, to hit subscribe and to join us.